I want you to picture um, a really complex industrial system,
Oh,
like maybe a refinery or a high-pressure water treatment plant. You've got these distinct zones, right?
right. Different areas for different jobs.
Exactly. One area handles chemical processing, another does waste management, and there are very specific valves and pipes that regulate the flow between them.
It's a system built entirely on gradients. Pressure gradients, chemical gradients. It relies on things moving in one direction only.
Right. Now imagine a critical failure in one of those main processing sectors.
That's a bad day at the plant.
A very bad day. And you can't just patch a leak with some duct tape. You have to remove an entire wing of the plant.
You have to shut down the intake.
Yeah, shut down the intake, cut out the machinery, and somehow wire the inputs directly to the outputs of the next sector over, all while hoping the pressure doesn't just blow the whole thing apart.
And that is essentially what happens inside the human abdomen during a right hemicolectomy.
It sounds incredibly intense when you frame it that way.
It is intense. It's a major renovation.
But that's the reality of the procedure we're doing a deep dive into today. We're looking at the surgical anatomy of a right hemicolectomy.
It's a fascinating procedure.
It really is. And to keep us honest and precise today, we are using a specific breakdown. We're basing this on a video lecture by Gautamukala S. Raju titled HCC 1475 10I Surgical Anatomy Right Hemicolectomy.
That breakdown is excellent because it's not simply a how-to guide for cutting.
Right.
It's really a study in territory. It clearly defines the boundaries of the right colon so we understand exactly what is being sacrificed and, crucially, why.
And that why is usually pretty serious, isn't it?
Extremely.
The source highlights the primary indication for this procedure as right-sided colon cancer. So we're not doing this for fun or for a minor issue.
No, not at all.
We are dealing with a malignancy that has completely compromised a specific sector of the body's plumbing. And I'm really curious about how surgeons know exactly what to take out and how they put it all back together.
Well, it's a lesson in precision and anatomy. You really have to understand the before and after states of the right colon. Because of the way cancer behaves, how it travels through lymph nodes and blood vessels, you can't just scoop out the tumor.
Like taking the bad spot off an apple.
Exactly. You can't do that. You have to take the whole territory.
You have to do a major extraction.
Yes, a radical resection.
That word radical always sticks with me when we talk about surgery. It implies, getting right to the root of the problem, but it also implies doing something incredibly drastic.
It is drastic, but it's systematic.
Right. So our mission today is to visualize exactly what happens during this remodeling project. We are going to walk through this in 3 phases.
Sounds like a solid plan.
First, we'll look at the landscape, what is actually happening at this junction of the body before the surgery.
The starting anatomy.
Yeah. Second, the demolition or the resection, what exactly gets removed. And third, the reconstruction, how on earth surgeons reconnect those pipes.
It's a complete journey from anatomy to pathology and then finally to engineering.
Let's start with part 1, the landscape.
Okay.
To understand what we are cutting out, we have to understand what is there to begin with. The source focuses heavily on the junction between the small intestine and the large intestine.
This is a critical junction. We're talking about the terminal ileum.
The terminal ileum.
Yes, it's the very final segment of the small bowel. And I think we should pause on the function here for a second.
Sure.
The small intestine is where nutrient absorption happens. It's relatively clean. The contents are fluid.
It's the chemical processing zone from our analogy.
Exactly. And then it feeds into the right colon.
Which is the beginning of the large bowel.
Right. And this is where the job completely changes. The colon is designed to dehydrate content. Its whole purpose is to turn liquid into solid waste.
The waste management sector.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a bacterial fermenter. So the junction between the terminal ileum and the right colon isn't just 2 pipes meeting, it's a border crossing.
A border between 2 totally different biological environments.
Exactly. You have the fluid, nutrient-rich, cleaner environment of the small intestine meeting the highly bacterial dehydrating environment of the colon.
And guarding that border is a specific structure, right? The source mentions the ileum opening into the colon, which implies there's a controlled entry point.
There is. It's called the ileocecal valve.
Ileocecal valve.
Yes. It's essentially a sphincter muscle, and its job is twofold. First, let the waste flow into the colon.
Makes sense.
But more importantly, it stops the bacteria-laden contents of the colon from washing back up into the sterile small intestine.
It's a backflow preventer.
Exactly.
That seems like a pretty critical piece of hardware to have in the system.
Oh, it's absolutely essential for your health. If that valve fails, you get bacterial overgrowth in the small bowel, which causes major, major problems.
But, and I guess we're foreshadowing a bit here at right hemicolectomy, that valve is in the demolition zone.
It is. It's on the chopping block.
That's a terrifying thought. But let's hold that thought for a minute.
Okay.
We are standing at this junction. We've got the terminal ileum flowing into the right colon. But now you have a diagnosis of cancer in this right-sided region.
Right.
The surgeon looks at the landscape and determines a hemicolectomy is necessary.
Right. Hemi, meaning half, colectomy, meaning removal of the colon.
Right.
We are taking out the right half of the large intestine.
And that brings us to part 2, the resection. The source material gives us this very specific hit list, basically, a shopping list of structures that have to go.
It is a very defined list.
And from what I understand, the surgeon isn't just picking and choosing parts here and there. It's not snipping out a tiny spot. It's a specific amount of colon on the right side. It's a package deal.
Yes, the medical term is an en bloc resection.
En bloc altogether.
Exactly. You take the organ, its vascular supply, and its lymphatic drainage, all in one continuous piece.
Because of the cancer.
Right. You absolutely do not want to cut into the cancer field. You want to cut completely around it. You need wide margins.
So let's look at the inventory of this removal. Let's do a deep dive into the parts.
Let's do it.
The first thing mentioned in the source, sitting right down there at the very bottom of the right colon, is the appendix.
The vermiform appendix, it basically just hangs off the cecum.
But why take it?
Well, it's interesting because in the context of colon cancer, the appendix is usually just an innocent bystander.
It's not the problem.
No, it's rarely the cause of the hemicolectomy, but because it's physically attached to the very start of the colon, the launch pad, so to speak, it has to go.
I see. It's like demolishing a house, and the front porch just has to go with it because it's attached.
That's a great analogy. You can't safely leave it behind. And as I mentioned, the appendix is attached to the cecum, which is the second major structure on our demolition list.
The cecum. Now, this is that sort of pouch-like structure at the very beginning of the large intestine, right?
Yes. It's a blind pouch that sits down in the lower right quadrant of your abdomen.
So it's the first thing that receives the flow from the terminal ileum.
Correct. It receives all the fluid from the small intestine. And it's usually the widest part of the colon. Because it is this large pouch, it can sometimes be a silent reservoir for tumors.
Silent meaning you don't notice them.
Right. Tumors can grow quite large there before they actually cause a physical blockage that the patient would notice.
Wow. Okay, so we are removing the appendix and the cecum. That clears out the entire bottom right corner of the abdomen.
It does.
But the cancer protocol requires us to move upstream, right? We have to follow the flow.
Up against gravity, actually. We move up to the ascending colon.
Right. The source is very clear on this. The removal includes the ascending colon. For you listening, if you visualize it, this is the pipe running vertically straight up the right side of your belly.
Exactly. And think about the vascular supply here. The blood vessels that feed that cecum pouch down below, they also feed this ascending colon.
So they share the same plumbing network.
They do. And to ensure you remove all potential pathways for the cancer to spread, you can't just snip out the cecum and leave the rest of that network intact.
You have to put the whole network out.
You have to take the entire vascular tree for that section. And that means taking the entire ascending colon, traveling all the way up toward the ribs.
That is a significant amount of tubing we're talking about.
That really is.
We're talking inches, potentially a foot or more of intestine, depending on the person's size.
Easily.
And we keep going up until we hit the next major landmark mentioned in the source, which is the hepatic flexure.
Yes, the hepatic flexure. This is the northern border of our resection territory, so to speak.
Hepatic refers to the liver, right?
Right. So the colon travels straight up the right side. It hits the area right under the liver, and it has to make a sharp, basically 90-degree turn to the left.
Across the abdomen?
Exactly, to become the transverse colon. That sharp turn right under the liver is the hepatic flexure.
So the surgeon draws the resection line right there at the bend.
Usually just past it, actually. You want to make sure you clear that corner completely. So the surgeon is essentially drawing a massive box around the entire right side of the abdomen.
From the tail of the appendix down south.
All the way up the ascending colon.
And right around that hepatic flexure corner.
Yep. That entire segment is removed en bloc.
And as we established earlier, this whole package includes the valve, the ileocecal valve.
Correct.
The gatekeeper is officially removed.
It is. The valve is physically part of the cecal anatomy. You just cannot save it when you take the right colon.
So Let's just pause for a second and look at the demolition site we've created.
That's a big change.
We have removed a massive, continuous section of the gut. We've completely severed the connection to the small intestine, and we have cut the colon across the top middle of the abdomen.
You have created a major discontinuity, a gap in the system.
Right.
And biologically speaking, this is a crisis. You have the output of the small intestine, which is enzymes, fluids, nutrients just spilling out into nothing.
Just an open hose.
Exactly. And on the other side, you have the remaining large colon sitting there totally disconnected.
Which brings us nicely to part 3, the reconstruction phase.
The engineering phase.
Yeah. And this is where the source material gets really interesting to me because it truly feels like pure plumbing engineering. We have to bridge that massive gap.
We do. The goal here is to restore functional continuity. We need to get the contents from the terminal ileum to flow safely into the transverse colon.
Taking the pipe that used to feed the lower right section and connecting it directly to the crosstown highway.
That's a perfect way to visualize it.
Now, the source calls this specific connection an ileocolonic anastomosis.
Right. Let's break that word down because it sounds intimidating, but it's really just descriptive.
Please do.
Ileo refers to the ileum, the small intestine.
Okay.
Colonic refers to the colon. And anastomosis is simply the surgical connection of two luminal structures.
Luminal meaning tubes.
Yes, tubes. It comes from Greek, basically meaning providing a mouth. We are surgically creating a new mouth between these two severed tubes.
But here's the problem I see immediately, and the source actually alludes to this when it discusses the different connection methods.
The size mismatch.
Yes. The terminal ileum is a small diameter tube. It's maybe an inch across.
Roughly, depending on the patient. It's a narrow, very muscular tube.
Right. And the transverse colon, on the other hand, is a large, baggy, thin-walled storage tank. It's much, much wider.
It is.
So you were trying to connect a garden hose to a fire main. How do you possibly get a watertight seal when the calibers of the two pipes are so drastically different?
That is exactly the technical challenge of the ileocolonic anastomosis. If you just try to stitch them circle to circle, end to end directly, you have a huge mismatch.
They won't line up.
No. You might have to artificially stretch the small bowel, or you have to bunch up the large bowel, cinch it down just to make them fit together.
And that sounds risky.
It is. So the source details two specific techniques to handle this gracefully. The first one is the end-to-end method.
End to end.
Yes. This is probably the most intuitive method. You take the cut end of the ileum and the cut end of the colon, and you sew or staple them directly together.
But what about that size difference we just talked about?
Right. To manage that discrepancy, surgeons have architectural tricks. For instance, they might cut the ileum at an angle.
Like a bevel.
Exactly, a bevel. By cutting it at an angle, you functionally make the opening wider, which helps it match the larger size of the colon opening.
Oh, I see. It's like cutting a flower stem at an angle before you put it in a vase to increase the surface area.
That is exactly it. It changes the geometry of the opening from a small, tight circle into a longer, larger oval, and that oval matches the colon's diameter much better.
That makes total sense. That's a clever trick.
It is.
But the source also spends time detailing the second method, which is end to side. And this one feels a bit more, I don't know, architectural.
I often prefer the mechanical logic of the end-to-side connection. Here's how it works. You take the cut end of the large colon and you completely staple or sew it shut.
Wait, you seal off the colon?
Yes. You turn the end of the transverse colon into a dead end, a stump.
Okay.
Then you take the open end of the small intestine, the ileum, and you bring it up to the side wall of that colon you just sealed.
To the side of the pipe.
Right. You make a brand new incision right in the side of the colon, and you stitch the end of the ileum into that new hole.
So you're creating a T-junction.
Precisely. It's a T-bone connection.
But why go through all that extra trouble? Why not just do the end-to-ends we just talked about?
It comes down to security. When you plug a small pipe into the side wall of a large pipe, the overall size mismatch of the tubes matters a lot less.
Because you control the size of the hole.
Exactly. You can make the new hole in the side of the colon the exact perfect size to match the diameter of the ileum. It creates a very secure, stress-free connection. There is often much less tension on the suture line with this method.
And in intestinal surgery, tension is the ultimate enemy, right? If those stitches are pulled too tight, they're going to rip.
Correct. And leakage here, what we call an anastomotic leak, is a life-threatening complication. It's the thing surgeons fear most.
You definitely don't want digestive fluids leaking into the abdominal cavity.
Absolutely not. So whether the surgeon chooses the end-to-end method or the end-to-side method often depends on the specific anatomy sitting right there on the table.
Making the call in the moment.
Yes. How healthy is the surrounding tissue? How big is the actual size discrepancy between the two bowels? The source presents both as highly valid, standard options to achieve the exact same goal.
Which is functional continuity.
Yes, getting the system flowing again.
I want to circle back to something we touched on earlier, though.
Okay.
We talked about the ileocecal valve, that critical border guard that stops bacteria from backing up from the colon into the clean small intestine.
Right.
We removed it. It's gone.
It is permanently gone.
So now, in this new reconstructed anatomy, we have the small intestine connected directly to the transverse colon, totally without a valve. Does that not cause massive problems for the patient?
This is one of those truly fascinating things about the human body. Theoretically, yes, you lose that mechanical check valve. The small bowel is now continuously exposed to the bacterial environment of the colon.
Which sounds bad.
But practically, the body adapts remarkably well.
So the ileum just figures it out.
Well, the flow of digestion naturally moves downstream. As long as there is no physical blockage ahead in the colon, the forward pressure of digestion keeps things moving in the right direction.
Like a river keeping the ocean water at bay.
Exactly. And over time, the terminal ileum can actually colonize a bit.
What does that mean?
It means the tissue adapts its behavior. It actually takes on some of the water-absorbing functions of the missing colon. It mimics what the right colon used to do.
That is wild. We talk all the time about smart systems and technology, but biology is the ultimate smart system.
It really is.
You literally delete a major hardware component, rewire the physical circuit, and the hardware updates its own drivers to make it work.
It's resilience in its purest form. But I should note, it does change the patient's physiology.
How so?
Patients might notice changes in their digestion. Maybe things move a little faster, or maybe the consistency changes simply because they are missing that massive drying out phase that the right colon originally provided.
That makes sense.
But they adapt.
We mentioned right at the start of this deep dive that this procedure is often done for cancer. And while the source video focuses heavily on the structural anatomy, I have to imagine that the en-bloc removal we discussed, taking all those blood vessels and lymph nodes together, that's really the key to the cure.
It is the single most critical part of the operation. You aren't just a plumber restoring flow. You are a surgeon evicting a systemic disease.
Right.
By taking the ascending colon and all its associated tissues all the way up to that hepatic flexure, you are completely removing the localized transport network that the cancer would naturally use to spread to the rest of the body.
So the physical anatomy dictates how you do the surgery, but the pathology of the cancer dictates the overall extent of the anatomy you have to take.
That is a beautiful way to summarize it. You simply cannot compromise on those resection boundaries just to save a few inches of healthy pipe. The physical anatomy of the blood flow absolutely determines the borders of the hemicolectomy.
I'm just looking at the diagram in my head right now. We've gone from a full rectangular loop around the abdomen to a slightly shorter loop with a brand new shortcut.
That's it.
The cecum is gone, the ascending colon is gone. The ileum now plugs straight into the transverse colon across the top.
The surgeon creates a new normal for the body.
And for you listening to this, maybe you're a med student studying for boards, or just someone trying to understand a family member's upcoming surgery. What is the one core thing you should take away from this specific deep dive?
I would say it's the concept of standardized precision.
Standardized precision.
Yes, a right hemicolectomy isn't just a random carving out of bad tissue. It is a highly standardized, well-mapped procedure defined by absolute landmarks.
The terminal ileum, the blood vessels, the hepatic flexure.
Exactly. It's a recipe.
And knowing that recipe is what allows surgeons to perform this massive renovation safely, over and over again, in thousands of patients.
Right. Whether they choose to connect it end-to-end or end-to-side, that's just a tactical decision made on the ground. But the strategic goal, safely removing the entire right colon package, remains exactly the same every time.
It really demystifies the whole process for me. It's not surgical magic, it's just a deep, profound knowledge of the map.
And a deep respect for the territory.
We've covered a lot of ground today, both anatomically and metaphorically.
We certainly have.
We've seen how the body is built in these distinct modules, and how those modules can be completely rearranged to save a person's life.
It is always humbling to me as a professional to see just how much we can take away from the body, and yet the person remains whole and functional.
And that is exactly the thought I want to leave everyone with today. We tend to think of our bodies as these incredibly fragile, perfectly balanced houses of cards.
Right, where one wrong move ruins it.
Yeah, like if you pull one card out, the whole thing falls apart. But a procedure like a right hemicolectomy proves the exact opposite.
It really does.
You can entirely remove a complex valve, you can remove a massive storage tank, you can fundamentally reroute the main pipes, and the system still finds a way to keep flowing and keep you alive.
The human body is designed to survive.
Dr. Raju's video gave us the blueprint for the demolition and the reconstruction, but at the end of the day, the body does the real work of adapting and healing.
Absolutely true.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the surgical anatomy of this right hemicolectomy. We hope your own internal plumbing is working smoothly right now, but at least now you know exactly what happens if it ever needs a major overhaul.
It's been a pleasure.
Keep exploring, everyone.